to shadows, uncovering the light. Guess with solid minds, no tales of the strange. In Sasquatch Secrets, they'll begin to rearrange. Truth's the vibe, we're on a quest. Look beyond the trees, what do you see? Factual stories redefining history. No myths, no magic, let's break the mold. With every word spoken, the wonders unfold. Footprints in the snow, not just a myth. Data and research will sift through the pit. Tales of a creature, but science leads the way. Nikki's quest for knowledge, come join and stay.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to another Sasquatch Secrets, the podcast where I dig deeper into the world of Bigfoot, fact, fiction, and everything in between. I'm your host, Nikki Colon. So glad you could be here today. Looks like everybody is filtering in really fast for today's show. We have a couple of great guests, but tonight we're not going to be chasing shadows in the woods. Okay, we're shining a spotlight on something just as important: the quality of evidence we're using to support Bigfoot claims. We're calling this one Spotting Bad Science in Sasquatch Research. And that doesn't mean people are always trying to fool others, okay? Not always trying to hoax, but it does mean that we need to stay sharp. And to help me do that, I've got a couple of great guests tonight, one of which you all know. He likes to cut through the fog. We got Brent on tonight.
Through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Hey, what's
And
up?
hello, Brent, the stranger.
Yeah,
Actually, you did stop by a couple. Has it already been 2 weeks? You've stopped in a little bit at the end of one of my shows.
oh yeah.
But it's good to see you. I watched your little impromptu outing with Tristan and Cosmo, which was really interesting. And matter of fact, we're going to talk about that a little bit later because I got something to talk about on that. And but we do have another guest coming on. Here we go. It's time to bring on Ron Reed.
Hey,
Hello, Ron. Welcome to Sasquatch Secrets. This is your first time on. Good to see you.
yeah, it's good to be here.
Good, great. And tonight, looks like we got a full house out there. Everybody's filtering in pretty fast. Let me see if I can get over here on this other one. Say a quick hi to Sharon. Good to see you. And Jonathan, Sasquatch Wizard Adirondacks, is in the house. Bat Mom as usual. And Lazy Cowboy, stay awake. Stay awake. He's across the pond. And is staying up for this one. So happy you could be here. Sandra Piper. And who else we got? Kevin Harder's in there. There's Robert Denduven and Jen. Good to see you, Jen. It's great to see everybody. If I missed you, oh, there's the Trackways coming in, or somebody said hi to Deb. Henry, there you are. I was getting worried. Relic Hominin, good to see you too. Good to see everybody. But anyway, when we say bad science, we're not talking about the evil scientists in the lab, right? We're talking about the sloppy, rushed, biased work that looks scientific but falls apart under scrutiny. So in the world of Bigfoot research, this can show up as exaggerated claims or selective data or conclusions that just aren't supported by the evidence. And that's kind of where this is going to go, okay, in that direction there. And I am going, because, you know, we got to talk about that. There's a lot of people out there who like to do that cherry picking, you know, for their data. And that's can be some of the problems. But I'm going to move us around a little bit. And we can start the show here. So the first, see if that'll work, is exactly how I was saying. When research or investigations look scientific and on the surface, but it's done not quite in the right way. And I think a lot of us don't claim to be researchers. We actually just say we're investigators. We're on our own journey, our own path. I know I say that. Brent says that, you know, but there are a lot of people out there who do call themselves researchers. And to me, that just seems a little bit like you expect more, you know, a little bit more. Now, there are people in our immediate host of people like Trackway and Jonathan, Sasquatch Wizard, and Thomas Steenberg, who I 100% would call them researchers. They collect the data, they analyze it, they archive it. All of that is part of that science, you know. But there's, you know, it turns out there's red flags in a lot of this stuff, and it can lead to other things. Brent, so what's the most unbelievable Bigfoot headline you've ever seen? I know I have them down here below, but it seems like, you know, there's some things that are called science, but they're really not.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what you said?
What is like, what's something? Okay, well, so we can start with this first one, like sensationalized headlines. We got people out there who just are throwing stuff out, and I'm guilty too, that I will sometimes get teasers or get you know, so that you want to attract people to your channel. But some of them seem to be a little bit over the top, maybe, you know, really.
Like the Squatch washers?
They do that, and I've got 3 different people up here right now, you know. They wanted to eat the baby, you know, people that kind of attracts people to watch this stuff. And, you know, the incredible Bigfoot war and proven Bigfoot DNA, proven Bigfoot DNA. And a lot, you know, there's a lot of actually headlines out there that have said that, proven or confirmed, you know, like the one below it, and 100% undeniable proof, you know, and it's not really there. You know, I don't really feel like there's a lot of people out there who are every day seeing Bigfoot. You know, I think that's a pretty inflated idea. And Ron, you have trekked all over. You know, you would think that in all your days of being out in the woods that you would have, you know, run into a lot of Bigfoot.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's this this misconception because of what we see in the media and what we see, you know, like popping up in our pop culture, that like it's something that sounds easy. You just go out into the woods, you go out into the squatchy woods, and then you just get all this incredible evidence. And I think that's setting a lot of us up to adopt a misunderstanding about what might actually be out there, and like how it goes about living.
Yeah. Yeah. That sensationalism, it hurts. I think it hurts the people on the side who are really trying to get answers. And it puts a damper for the rest of the community, or people outside the community for that matter, because outside they still think we're a bunch of loonies, looking for Bigfoot, or even just believing in Bigfoot. If you go down comment sections, you will always find people saying Bigfoot isn't real, move on, or Bigfoot doesn't exist, you're crazy, and that happens to this day. That happens and will always happen. Patty, oh my goodness, I was just thinking about you today too. Thank you so much, Patty. I appreciate this for you.
Whoa! Whoa!
Patty, I appreciate, for those of you who don't know, she just made oops, I clicked the wrong thing. Huge donation. Thank you so much, Patty. I appreciate that. Much love to you. Oops, now it's clicking whatever it wants. So, it hurts, the search for truth in Bigfoot is kind of a fine line. And you either have those two sides, the scientific side or the woo side, and sometimes people want to say there's a gray area, but I'm not sure. I've never witnessed that, but I know a lot of researchers do. And Ron, when you are out there, and what got you interested in the whole Bigfoot thing? Did you have your own sighting?
Well, I think I got interested in the subject just because I was young. I actually got in the subject when I was, like a teenage kid. And I remember in my childhood memories, I was terrified of something like Bigfoot. I lived out in the woods with like 10 acres of land growing up in Middle Tennessee. And I used to go out and play all the time. So whenever I had something like a Bigfoot would come up, it would actually scare me, because I was like, that's like my playground out there. That could be out there, But as I got older, I got a little bit more adventurous, a little bit bolder, like the mystery and the prospect of danger and excitement. And I kind of matured into finding a fascination with cryptozoology. And that kind of led me on a personal journey of like, I want answers. I want to know if something's out there. And just as it would be, like I would start encountering like sounds that I thought at the time were wood knocks. And then that would keep me invested. And that was like right there on our personal property, coming from woods across a field and into someone else's private land. And that got me like engaged enough to like want to go and do like my own expeditions and like Bigfoot hotspots. And I just like started ramming the roads in my young adult years. And more things like wood knocks, potential vocalizations, and just oddities really like started to form a narrative. Like, I think there might be something out here. And the flip side to that, the other side of that, was I was getting interested by what I was reading online and deep diving the subject, and really like trying to disprove it, trying to be unbiased, and like casually, generally leaning on the side that they might be out there, because of like big inspirations like Meldrum and Bindernagel, who had like these very scientifically grounded philosophies on how it's plausible, how it's not only plausible but based off the evidence it's likely. And I think within the last, like, I would say the last 7-8 years, getting out to the West Coast more often and settling in some very remote areas that are considered like prime Bigfoot habitat, more substantial evidence has kind of come of that. The hairs that we collect from like the Bluff Creek area, the potential trackways that look like a bipedal animal left them in leaf litter, and like some of the harder to explain like vocalizations that we've had analyzed by specialists that couldn't come up with anything for like a known species. Those were like the types of things that like really like got me sold on like, okay, I'm in for this. This is a journey. This is like, I'm going to see how far I can take this. In terms of a sighting, I had one thing happen on a remote stretch of recreation trail back in 2018. It was dark, it was rainy, it was foggy, worst case scenario in terms of visibility. But I did see something that looked like a crouching figure. And it looked like my line of sight was broken. It looked like it got up, and then the sight line was broken a second time, and then it was gone. So like, I don't know what that was. That's like one of those big mysteries hanging over my head. Like, I don't know, but return visits to that area, I've brought some evidence from what seems to be wood knocks occurring around me in that spot too. So like, it's for me, it's like I have to still say, okay, I don't know what that is. And knocks aren't like anything that's like, that can't be replicated by somebody else, but the circumstances of people being out there, some of the behaviors that my longtime travel companion Bandit, my dog that traveled with me for years, and just recently passed.
Sorry to hear about that.
That's all right, guys. He's such I just got nothing but joy for the celebration of his life. But the fact that he was always telling me like his instincts were like reacting a very non-typical way as well was just something that like I became in tune with. And I don't know, that spot where I do my research is so special to me, and I don't really like let the location be known because I don't want that to interfere with the integrity of the investigation that I'm doing. But I think that for me is the closest thing I've ever had to a sighting. And it's still a big maybe. And even though things keep happening that kind of form that narrative of Bigfoot, I still have to keep that unbiased state that says it looks likely, which is going to justify more research. But I can't like just say, yeah, I saw one, guys, definitive proof,
Yeah. Yeah. Are you in the Pacific Northwest, or are you on the East Coast?
I lived in Tennessee, and about 4.5, 5 years ago, I moved up to southern Wisconsin. So now I'm in the Midwest, and I'm excited because within the last like year and a half, I started finding areas that have good potential out here. So but I'm all over the map, and I don't know. It's been an interesting journey, but
yeah. Well,
you're
go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, I was Ron, yours was one of the first YouTube channels I came across on the whole Bigfooting thing, and it was just following your journey and stuff. It was really cool. It's you don't get to see you posting as much, but yeah, I love that journey that you're on, like that cross nation area, and you and Bandit just taking on the world.
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it's nice when you see people just out there and making themselves available to whatever happens out there in the wilderness. And you're off on far off trails, not just, me. I do a couple miles off the main road, and that's about all I can do by myself. But, it's like Brent always says, it's just about making yourself available, putting yourself into situations where you could, run into something, because over the years, I really think that we're not going to go out there and find them, hunt them, or whatever. They're going to come find us if they want to. So,
and it's just making yourself a good, have a good vibe, so you're approachable, and I think that's probably the key, because me and Cosmo, we've spent years just bushwhacking in some of the most remote areas in the North Cascades, and yeah, you're not going to go sneak up on them, you're not going to go track them down, you're not doing any of that. It's like you need to bring them in towards you.
I think there's definitely different types of people in this community who we've talked about this again and again. It's just some people want to hear the stories. They don't care if the stories are real or where they came from or who's telling the story. It's just, the story. It's just the encounter story they want to hear. And then there's a whole other group that want to make up things and make those stories seem like they were amazing, and but it doesn't happen that way. I feel like those type of sensationalized encounter stories. They're made up. They're part of somebody's imagination half the time, and that's what people like. They like that, though. And hopefully, there's more of the research side or the investigation side that people are starting to turn to a little bit more. I mean, all of, like the Olympic projects type stuff and other groups that have proven they don't come out with a bunch of stuff because all their videos are just them out there looking, and that's when it seems to be the real thing, that they're not making up sightings. It's half the time it's just you out there hiking and camping, glamping, whatever you want to call it. It's pretty things don't really happen. You might hear a lot of stuff going bump in the night, but we really don't know what's making those bumps in the night. We like to talk about those, though, and record them and analyze them, and that's what it's all about. That's the data. That's the science. That's the science part. So there's a lot of times when you go looking for information online and you'll click something like one of these and it is not what you think it is. It turns out just to be a whole video of videos of Bigfoot that have already been debunked and chat GPT'd up to the hilt with stuff that you just put into a video, for those clicks and views. And that, I think it hurts the science part for sure when you allow that to happen, or not allow, but when that becomes such a big thing, and there's a bunch of channels out there that are doing stuff like that. And just like the ones that are showing right here, I bet you could guess who some of these are from.
That Cabin in the Wood dudes?
One of them is Woods, yeah, for sure. One of them's NK. Did I get MK? No, one is Todd Standings. One is, who's the other one that I got for him? Shoot, now I can't even remember. But it's the same group that we're always talking about. And yeah, I think it is Todd Standing. It's over. They exist. 100% undeniable proof.
Oh yeah. And then you expect to click on something that shows Bigfoot there eating a steak with you or something, something so verifiable, but you go in there and it's like, where's the evidence at? You got to try and find it. Then you find out it's really not evidence.
Right. And that leads to stuff like misinterpreted results, which is, some people will say it's evidence of Bigfoot. Let's try, right here, I just have some tree structures. Okay. And I think they can be put into data for sure. They can. And especially those big ones that you just can't explain. There's no backhoe that went in there and created these monstrous overlapping tree structures, especially like the ones you find up in Canada or Nordeg area. It's interesting, right? It's something you can't explain. So it has to be kept there. And then, if it's something super small, I tend to not even look at that stuff. But even you, Brent, had something. I don't know if I put it in next. Yeah, I did. You guys had a tree break that you guys couldn't explain while you were out there. You, Tristan, and I don't know if Cosmo was with you on this one, but
no, just me and Tristan.
And what can you go through some of the steps that you take when you're trying to say eliminate, things how that could have happened?
Yeah, I mean, when you come across something like this, a tree break, I mean, I know it's subjective evidence, and but you try to figure out how that could have happened, and so you look around for trees and that might have fell, that might have broke it. you try to break it with your hands to see if a person can just go quickly break it and stuff. And so you try to eliminate all these things of what could have happened, and it's vetting all this stuff out there in the woods, which that's one of the hardest part is people's interpretations of what they find out in the woods, because none of us are trained to be a researcher in anything, really. I'm not. Shit, I'm a business owner. It's like, what I know from researching is just stuff I learned online, trial and error and stuff like that. And so, so when you're out there, you have to try and vet what you're finding to make sure it's not Bigfoot related. And this one here was interesting. It's like, man, that's so random. And it was pointing down to this trail that was going down and going down. It's like, oh, you can start creating a narrative and stuff. And so I posted that. I'm like, hey, this is interesting. I don't know. And so I think it was Bill finding the trackway. Great investigator. Like, you talk about investigator researchers, man. Bill and Jonathan, man, those two are like the best I've ever seen out there. Like, those two are like Bill, man, that dude is like, he's got it locked in. And so anyway, but Bill was talking about how there's these two little marks. He's like, oh, it could be a bite mark of a bear or something. And I didn't notice it. They're so small. And they're like random and stuff. And so I went to the internet. I didn't get emotionally attached to the evidence by saying, oh, no, this is Bigfoot. I believe it's Bigfoot, and you can't really talk me off down that hill right there. And, which is a bad mindset to have. So, when me and Tristan couldn't figure it out, we documented it, did all we could, and went back. I posted online saying, hey, here's a tree break. This is interesting. It's an area where Bigfoot has a long historical activity there. So it's like, could be possible. This pretty remote area that we were at, like really hard to get to, and like bushwhacking and stuff. And I think I posted online and got some feedback from people who saw stuff that I didn't see at the time, and so they pointed it out. And I go back and look at the pictures. I'm, oh, that's right, I see it now. And so it's having that type of mindset too, of not getting emotionally attached to evidence that you come across, because again, people will hold on to something that has obviously been debunked or obviously not Bigfoot related, but they just want to hold on to it and stuff because they get emotionally attached. And so that's kind of the whole process that I personally kind of do. And like I say, I'm not no pro. I just wing it. I don't have any formal training, and that's the problem, is none of us do that. We're all citizen scientists doing the best that we can in a vacuum where there's no real viable evidence or information that we can really use to better our own investigations and stuff, which is why it gets such a diversity of investigation techniques, researchers, and claims and all that stuff. And it's because of the environment that we're in. And that's kind of the problem. And we try to help each other, teach each other, and all that stuff. But it's hard to find the really good people who are trying to make progress in the subject by taking a scientific approach to it. And it's, as we all can agree, it's not really being done. And I, again, link it back to, it's the mindset that we have when we're out there, not getting emotionally attached to it, and just going through the process and being okay if it's not Bigfoot related. Now, I would love for that tree break to be Bigfoot related. That would have been amazing. I would love that. I'd be like, yeah, but it's likely not. We had that experience yesterday with those knocks and that tree being pushed over. Like, I don't know. I went and talked to those people, which I never do. Like, man, I'm so introverted. That was like surprised I did that. But even with that, it's like,
and I was like, just go do it. And then finally I texted, I go, just go over there. You want to. Somebody else was telling you to. I can't remember who it was.
Mountain Man, I think it was. Yeah. It's something that you have to do. So I went there, talked to him, and got some more information that could possibly. We're kind of split on this as far as what made the noise, that knocking noise. I'm sure people heard it in the video. So there was a guy and a girl there, and you guys saw the video where the lady was doing like a certification on sign and stuff, and so they did do some knocking, but it wasn't tree knocking or something. There's like this wedge thing, this metal wedge that they have to like help take apart the wood and stuff. So it's very possible that what we heard, that knocking, was that wedge right there being hit. Now, I don't know if the sound could travel that far and if they were actually there into position there doing it when we heard those sounds, because from the account from when I first saw them, it looked like they're just coming into the forest from the road. So, I'm not sure if they were set up and able to do that. Maybe, I don't know. But the whole tree being pushed over, I don't know if that got caught on there, but that was like a rotten tree being pushed over, exactly what it sounded like. And they didn't hear that. So that's still kind of a mystery. And, I don't know if Bigfoot's anywhere. I think those are the areas that they probably are. And
Right.
you just got to put yourself out there, like you're saying.
About is that, when I got to a part of unrepeatable results, and it made me think about you guys out there and hearing those knocks. And it was on this live stream I have up right now with Cosmo and Tristan, and he had it yesterday. And you guys can go to the Tall Ones channel and find that. But, sound travels really weird in the woods when you have dips and little valleys and little culverts and all these things. The sound is a weird thing. So I totally thought I was more on Cosmo's side on this one, where I think it was those people there, fooling around and cutting wood and knocking stuff. But I wasn't there, and that's something that we have to take ourselves out of, because we weren't there. So each of you interpreted it as something completely different. And that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, it's not that we experienced it completely different. It's just that we couldn't figure it out. And I think we do have different, ideas of what might have caused it or something like that. And who knows what's right? I mean, I don't know. Like with the whole tree being pushed over thing, that was really interesting. It's not like it was windy out there or anything like that. And sound does travel.
I missed it on the video, but people were saying they heard it, right? Because
yeah.
Jen, I think Jen said she definitely heard it on the live stream, but I had come in right after that and I didn't go back to check it out. But that'll be interesting to see what the chat actually heard out there, And Ron, what's your feelings on the sounds and tree structures?
I think that what I've kind of learned from it, whether they're wood knocks or whether they're possible vocalizations, I think that I spent a little time preparing for this and just kind of looking at the thought process that we often go through, and I kind of stumbled across like a list of logical fallacies, and I think that well-meaning Bigfoot investigators or people that are enthusiasts, when they look in and expect to see evidence, I think the thing that we're most prone to suffering from is the fallacy of hasty generalization. And that is just like, there's something that could be evidence. It could imply one thing, a little bit of data to look at, to digest, to come to a terms with. And we forget how big and diverse the world that we're engaging with is. So is that a human behavior that we're misinterpreting as a Bigfoot behavior? Is that a dislodged rock that left a depression that vaguely looks footprint shaped? Is that something like was that a vocalization? Like I'm not an expert in acoustics. Like I've taken a lot of time to understand wildlife and some basics in tracking and sign identification. But like, I know that not everyone has put that time in. Like I can't begin to start this is like a 20-year thing for me now. I started in 2005 interested in the subject, and I kind of gradually learned this, learned that, but it's like all these like wider related fields of study that have helped me have this comprehensive understanding and maybe like look at something and know that that's bear sign. But then like there's other things that are worth like I don't know. I'm getting ahead of myself, but like in terms of just the sounds, there's just so many different variables, and it's so hard to kind of lock it down. So for me, if you start having multiple things happen, or it's within a controlled environment where you can definitively say it was or wasn't this type of interference or this type of natural explanation, then it starts to distinguish itself as like a little stronger evidence. But even then, you still have to build upon that data, and keep looking and keep recording. So I don't know. There's a lot to it, almost too much for any of us to kind of explore on our own. So it comes down to like these conversations of, well, these are my experiences. What do you guys think? That peer review is critical.
Oh, absolutely.
They have that on here too as something to talk about. But when we have all these misinterpreted results, I mean, I grabbed these just off of some Facebook groups that have been on the last couple of weeks. I seen them. And immediately people take these and, oh, that's Bigfoot. The greatest thing, you know, and they run with it, and they create every year it's a different, you know, background story to it. And you got a kiss. See, you guys have your cats, and mine's nowhere to be found today. But if they did just a little bit of research or a little bit of dropping that photo into Google, you know, then they come up with the answers, right? All the answers are out there, and some people want to just pretend like they don't exist, that they aren't out there, that it's the best evidence they've ever seen, and it's the most convincing. I didn't follow up with that one. I threw that in there, but it was mostly for that foot right there. You know, misinterpreting prints. You know, it's a big thing. There's very few of us who are trackers or who are in, you know, really educated to see what's a double bear step or what is, you know, a Bigfoot print. We just kind of, like you said, we're just citizen scientists out there trying to do this. And a lot of people will go and get the proper training and really learn about this. And hunters, of course, they need to know what they're doing, right? And tracking. So, but I can see where mistakes were probably made with the hind foot of a bear and a Bigfoot, you know, tracks out there.
Oh,
and
100%.
why that one. So, and you just have to know that that's a possibility, because that's where it takes a weird turn when you automatically say that's a Bigfoot print, you know. But unless you were there and you saw it happen, you know, yeah, there's some that are undeniable that seem like, dang, that's a foot, you know, and that show movement instead of just a stamp in the mud, you know. But
yeah, but even with prints, they can also be hoaxed as well, because last year I talked to a couple of different people that knew someone or knew of somebody or came in contact with somebody that would actually go out to trailheads and plant fake Bigfoot prints for people to find. They're not out there in the trees like laughing and snickering. No, it's just something they don't see it as hoaxing. They just think, oh, I'm just pranking somebody. And so they go put Bigfoot prints by like trailheads and stuff like that. And so, you know, that's something else you also have to, like you're saying, you know, unless you really see it doing it, you really need to verify it. You know, verify as much as you can.
And that's a big thing, you know. People love to do that. They love to stack the rocks and near the creeks, you know, and all kinds of hikers do that. But people with the Bigfoot on the brain are saying, "Oh, Bigfoot did that," you know. When there's
to me.
no evidence showing that. Yeah, there's some videos out there of clacking of rocks, and there's some people saying that they use the rocks to break open the freshwater clams or whatever to eat. And There's some videos out there of that, nothing conclusive. You can walk around creeks and find evidence of something crushing shells. That's pretty prevalent all along the Pacific Northwest, and even in the Colorado Rockies you will find that in some places. So it's I think it's more of the mindset, like you said, that you just have to know that it could go either way, and
Yeah.
that's
And,
so quick to
yeah, and
point.
that mindset really develops once you first get into this subject. Like I can reflect back to like year 1 and 2 when I got into this subject. I was so naive. I was these type of people that would be like posting this stuff and not realizing it was already debunked because there's no real resource website out there for us to like, oh, let's go test this. You have to really do research to really kind of figure stuff out if it's already been debunked or not. But
Yeah.
you'll notice how the longer people are in this subject, you'll notice that they tend to get away from, for the most part, get away from this type of evidence that you have right here on screen and stuff. And I noticed it's mostly like the year 1 to 3 people that usually fall for this type of stuff, will promote it, will just believe it without any sort of evidence. And you also have to worry about like the other some of those pages and channels and stuff that are just, they know it's fake, but they just want people to click on the article and stuff to read it, or it's a self-serving agenda that they have using evidence that they shouldn't be
Yeah.
posting because they already know it's been debunked.
Mm-hmm. And that's pretty important. I mean, like this photo here I grabbed yesterday, I think. And they're circling the tops of trees, calling them Bigfoot. And I'm like, I clearly see the tops of the trees. It looks like a burned out area where you can see how the bottoms are burned and the tops are singed, trees tops. And if you look above the road there, if you look at the trees on the top, you can see how the tops are up there burned. And it's the same for the bottom, but because those tops are falling right on that road, the illusion was created that you've got these creatures walking on that road, and you can't tell them. You can't tell when they see Bigfoot, and you can't tell them, oh, that's just the top of the trees. What are you guys looking at then? No, we're looking at this, or no, it's different than the stump, and you can see the log or the tree going up, and they'll try everything to convince you that what they're seeing is the Bigfoot. Yeah, mountain man, it's a tree squatch now, and
I was gonna say, I really found the value in like just like sitting down with the subject, sitting down with something being presented and like engaging with it, like looking at it like a date, finding a love for the subject, a passion for the investigation process. And I think that that's taken me in some very interesting directions. A lot of times it's helped me understand what isn't Bigfoot in the environment, because I catch something on audio and I don't know what it is, but then I start like Googling like audio samples of birds of the Pacific Northwest and owl species or other things that can make a woo sound, and then I'm able to like discredit that for now as being something like that, or like taking a closer look at the tree structures, like you're saying, Brent, when you like kind of look at it and kind of break it down and say, well, this seems like it would be immense strength to break, but am I in an area that's susceptible to high winds? Could this be like snow burden or something like that?
right.
Like, or are there other animal signs that indicate that maybe it was a bear that did this? Or tracks, like, okay, this is not a true representation of the shape of the foot, but how the foot interacted with the soil. So would a foot come down on all four corners and create sharp depressions, or would it be like more of a natural progression from either going this way or coming down straight? And just there's a lot of telltale signs when you really look close, put your magnifying glass on and get close up to it. I think of one thing in particular. I remember looking at a tree break in the Bluff Creek area, and we weren't entirely sure what it was at first. I just could notice it across a field that it was like very like wrecked, like just torn and bent and twisted. And when we got closer, we realized that it looked like bear, like what Brent was describing with the bark being bitten. Like they'll I don't know if they bite that, and so that creates like a moist surface where they can rub their scent on if it's a territorial behavior. But as we looked around, we saw a lot of like hair everywhere, and we said, well, we don't know what it is, and maybe we can take it up to Cliffs Museum in Oregon and have it looked at under a microscope. And we started taking various samples, but it was that looking close that really helped myself, Tate Hieronymus, Damon Irons. We were looking at all of these hairs, and we all kind of looked at one that was higher than the rest, and it was like of a different consistency than the others. And what we had kind of realized was there were multiple animal species that had interacted with that tree after the bear had attacked it. And that resin, that sap, became a natural hair trap for multiple species. And so it had gone from, oh, well, let's take a closer look because this might not be a Bigfoot tree break, to, oh, yeah, it looks like a bear did this, to, wait, we're still looking closely and some other story is starting to develop here. And when we took our various samples, a lot of them did come back consistent with a physical analysis that was familiar with bear species. We also had something that looked like it was, we compared it with like the structure of the medulla and its coloration. It looked like it was consistent with some type of weasel or something like that. But that big long hair that was tall had a lot of the physical characteristics that Cliff and a lot of established Bigfoot investigators are looking for. The fact that it didn't have a tapered end and the fact that it didn't have any medulla structure at all. It had a couple of those good looking signs like it was a potential Bigfoot hair. We still don't know for certain because hair structure is something that's like, we don't have it pinned down. Like even if I pulled different hairs off of various places of my body, some of that structure would be different. But it was still like an eye-opening moment of like, hold on, like what's going on here? Like this tells a story over like the course of potentially a year of everything that this tree has interacted with, not just that one interaction that's overtly obvious because it was so destructive. It was everything from that point afterward. And that was all a result of looking closely and actually being interested and engaged and not about forming a narrative of finding absolute evidence, but just having a natural curiosity and a passion for the subject.
Right. Yeah, for sure. You're right, Jonathan. When claiming your picture or video obtains a Sasquatch within frame, in my opinion, it is very important to remember to return and obtain photos of from the same position to compare and confirm. And that's what I always say. Where's your follow-up photos? Let me see what you took before you left, when you dropped off that trail cam. What do you have after? You should have some kind of chain of evidence there of different photos of that area. And you'll see, just like Chris Spencer and his group there from Study Sasquatch, they always show all the different succession of photos, that come from their trail cams or their night vision, so that what it looks like when there's nothing there, and then when there's something there. They've always got comparison photos, and that's the research, right? That's what we want to see.
Yeah, because there needs to go to peer review too, for like us. There's no peer review in the subject. It's just the peers itself, and the best way you can present your evidence to your peers like that, the better off you'll be. And yeah, it's just something that the Bigfoot subject's still kind of working on, I guess.
Yeah, well, you're trying to eliminate all the, well, what if it's this? What if it's that? Do all that work. And that's where people will fall off, is because, they're not that into it. They just want to say they've got something, but they don't want to prove it either way, because it's harder for us to prove that it's not real, You know, the burden's on them to prove it's real. But it doesn't always happen that way. What I've got up right now is part of that. I love to show this just recently happened in the ice storm in Alba, Michigan. And it's a perfect classic show of how ice storms and weather affect the forest. You got to hear this. I mean, it's incredible.
You got a fat.
Not that.
Sweet. Be living in the field before too long. Huh. Good deal.
So, you know, it happens. That type of stuff happens. And when you go to any forest anywhere, you don't have a clean floor to walk through. You know, it's littered. It's littered with dead trees and stumps and everything on there. So I think a lot of people who don't actually have never walked in the forest, which there are people who have never done that, you know, make those assumptions that, well, no, nothing else could make that tree fall, you know. And we've all been around. Well, most of us have been around now, me too, tree falling and hearing that and realizing, you know, whoa, that's loud. That's big. Did that happen on its own, or did somebody help that, you know, push that thing over? You have questions, of course. That this also reminded me of this photo was taken back in 2015 off of a SR 250 260 off of Pines Payson in Arizona. And it's just a bunch of trees. But this made national news of a family of Bigfoot on the side of the road off an Arizona Department of Transportation camera.
Wasn't that an April Fool's thing?
No, it happened early. It was in January. It was right after snowfall or sometime. But I know which one you're thinking of, though. There is one that looks kind of similar, but that one was. But a month later, you could go back and pull up the same camera and see the trees. You know, there wasn't any snow, and you could better see that they were trees. And I went actually yesterday to the site again to see if I could even get a picture of it today, but the camera's no longer up. So I wasn't able to get another follow-up on it. They've moved the camera. But it's just, you know, that happens. That it's just people wanting to create things with their own results. This is a new one out there today too. I don't know what it is, and I haven't done any follow-up on it. I don't know if it's real. I don't know if it's fake. I don't know if it's a suit or a bear.
Well, is that a trail cam photo?
What is it? It says supposedly taken from the Pacific Northwest on a trail cam. But there's no indications it's a trail cam. There's no model, time stamp, anything on it. It looks like a photo taken from I don't know if that's a computer or if it's a TV. I don't know what it is.
Is that who posted that?
Gary Scruggs. I think it's Bigfoot Believer site.
Does it look like to you maybe on the right hand side? You see that black thing coming up from like the head?
Yeah, I thought that was like
it
ear.
makes me Yeah, well, it makes me think of like something like a horn, or somebody's like out there cosplaying as a Wampa from Star Wars or something, you know?
I don't know if it's from the tree back there or if it's coming out of the head. I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell, but I don't know. Could it be a bear? Do bears' hair get that long here? I don't think so. I think
But it
it's,
also,
I don't know.
yeah, it also comes down to, when people are viewing this stuff, it's like we should also expect to see like the Olympic Project does. They'll do the before and afters. They'll throw the whole slide up there of all
Yeah.
the pictures on the trail cam and stuff. And so when you don't see that and people withhold that information, it really makes things suspicious. As far as like, well, why are you like not giving us all the information so we could verify this or better understand it or something? And for me, that's always been a red flag when the researchers themselves don't want to participate and they just wanted to create the narrative and have the narrative be the truth.
And it makes it harder to debunk the more vague you are too, with like the location, like the Pacific Northwest. I mean, that probably was taken somewhere in the Pacific Northwest, and I guess my issue with that is it's so vague. Like what does one do with that information as as a fellow investigator? But then the other thing that I'm like critical about is that if it's vague and it is in that region, like there's not as many opportunities to debunk it. Like if I knew that picture has native plants that aren't endemic to Northern California, and they said Northern California, and I could be like, that's a species that's like range stops, like, in Central California or something like that, then somebody could point that out and a specialist could help debunk like some of the narrative there. But it's like so vague. It's like it's almost intentionally vague just to be like, yeah, it's this somewhere in the woods of America,
Yeah, like too intentional.
So
Now,
I try to avoid stuff like that because it's like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
real or not doesn't help me,
it doesn't, but this is the stuff that's, posted out there, and maybe it's all in fun, and some people do it just to see all the different things. Some people were just laughing at it. Some people were saying it was AI. Some were like, "Oh boy," like wow. And a whole wide variety of people who, want to believe that this is maybe the backside of a Bigfoot. It could be a bear. It could be a suit at this point. We don't know because there's not enough information.
Yeah. I mean, it's convenient that it's spaced away too.
Right. I mean, it could be from a movie.
Yeah.
Wonder if I can.
And there's only the one shot instead of a burst of multiple shots.
Exactly.
Right.
It's like you get the single photo, people post a photo of like Bigfoot on a field or whatever. And it's like, there's only one picture. It's like, well, where I would have like 50 pictures of that thing, it's like, where's those at? But again, when you don't get that information or it doesn't exist, then that kind of indicates that it's most likely manufactured evidence.
Yeah. Well, I think about like making thumbnails or pulling screenshots from video, like just for, like some friends, some other content developers, we always get the shots of ourselves that look the coolest, so, we try not to get the ones that are, undignified or, we're in a slumped over looking gross or whatever. We always get the shots where we look cool and that would be nice on the thumbnail and it looks so epic and we're so capable. And it's like the same logic has to be applied to some of these. Like somebody who might be intentionally hoaxing goes out and takes 10 shots and 9 of them look like an obvious hoax. So they pick that one that's vague enough and convincing enough to maybe get them the traction and the following that they want.
Yeah. It has 0 exact matches on Google Images, and it came up with a bunch of weird stuff. Let me see if I can pull this up real quick. Remove that, share this. Google. Where is it? Oh, there it goes. Okay. So it does have a bunch of Bigfoots that pop up. And where's that? Oh, look at this bear right here. Whoa, I never seen that one. Let's see. Yep. Nope. There you go. There's the suit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Some of those Facebook groups are like they're fake. They're ran by like fake people or something. Like, I don't
Oh
know.
yeah,
Gotta
they're
watch
like
out.
not in the country. Um they're like bots, set up bots.
Yeah, it's something. It's like, oh, that just sounds weird. But you
Kaiju
know, it's
says Wampa Squatch. And this was a new one that came out today too. Um, I don't know who this Andre Tulin is, but he says, "Is this a bear? I found this on public land near my house." I didn't do a search on this one either, but to me, it looks like I blew up one of the photos, and it looks like I can see a claw coming out of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
hey, are you getting to the Ohio one tonight, Nikki?
The
The
Ohio
thermal,
one.
that thermal one that you posted in the group chat. Remember Ohio Bigfoot Hunter?
Oh, you know what? I think I forgot to do that one.
That was
What is-
interesting. I didn't see the follow up on that, but it's an interesting video.
Let's see if I could get that one real fast because I posted it in our group, right?
Yeah. So yeah, it's Ohio Bigfoot Hunter. He seems like a legitimate channel. Like I've heard of him, or kind of, just kind of loosely following him. And he doesn't have any sensationalized videos, thumbnails, claims, or anything like that. At least from what I've noticed. But then he just posts this thermal footage that's like, that's interesting. And doesn't seem like somebody that would hoax or make a mistake of like, oh, that was just my partner up there. Whoops. So it's an interesting one.
Oh,
I'm not sure if
yeah,
there's a
but
follow up.
how far back was it? Was it? When did I do that?
It
This
was
week?
Yeah, it was
This
in
last
the
week?
main group chat. Yeah, it was like a week or two ago. Yeah, remember me and Pat's conversation?
I know, but now I can't find it. He's
Well, if you go
only, I don't know. Oh, that's
to
way too
Ohio
far.
Bigfoot Hunter on the YouTube channel, you might find it.
Oh, on the YouTube channel?
Yeah, Ohio Bigfoot Hunter.
Okay.
It's compelling evidence. It's like, it looks like a uniform heat signature. I couldn't really see jacket or anything. Or something that would say that it was a human person clothes. But because you don't really see not very often you see something come out that's like, oh wow, that's really interesting.
Wait,
Usually
what's the
it's
name of
like
it? Bigfoot.
Hunter. He's got like 5,000 subscribers. Yeah, there's another YouTube, Ohio Bigfoot something.
Yeah, that's what I get. Okay, here we go. 10 Chasing Bigfoot. Let's see here. Wait, caught it. Watching me? Is that the one? I think this is the one.
That's the one. Yeah.
Okay, let me get to it because he's got a lot of other stuff in front of it. Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's see. Stop right here. Oops. Oh, let me let it. It's running an ad. So.
Yeah, but that was good, interesting, compelling. I like I like stuff like that, especially from channels that don't sensationalize stuff or mislead you or anything like that. Because a lot of this stuff is nothing burgers, you know, which is pretty common.
Oh, that's what happened. Hold on. I backed out of it by mistake. Okay, now I can see. I'm just leaving off the music and stuff in the background. But he has a lot of video from it.
Yeah, I only saw this. I didn't do any other.
And then he says MK Davis, and then that started like, oh God, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, but that doesn't mean, like, you know, MK, he believes all the stuff he talks about. You know, he's cool. I mean, you know, I wouldn't trust him.
You definitely see
interpretation
walking,
of it
whatever
as
it is. It's
exactly,
on two
it's walking,
legs and
yeah.
it's walking. Yeah, so it's either one of his buddies and they're testing the flare, or you know, who knows.
Well, again, you know, if that was the actual case, I don't think he would have posted it, you know, because it would be obviously not a Bigfoot thing.
Right.
But the way he's presenting it here, it's like, I don't know what it was. Something was watching us. And like I said, I didn't do any follow-ups. He said he was going to do some follow-ups or stuff or something, but I didn't see it. But so it's like, I don't know.
That's what's better. It's better that he doesn't post, you know, inflated stuff, because then it makes it seem more credible. Just like Glenn Ross had some incredible footage of something out there, you know, sitting by a log, and it was definite heat signature out there. So
what I think is interesting about that video is like the whole body of it registers the heat evenly. And I don't know, are there any like fleers that do like that are so sensitive that they pick up a heat like with clothing? Because it just seems like it was like cold out, and that only warm thing in that area was like that body, that figure.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think that like if somebody had a jacket on or something, that it would be like that would be a break point for the heat signature.
Yeah, you'd be able to see it. Yeah.
And I recently just saw a video like that of a guy testing out his FLIR, and they had who was it? What was I watching? It was an older video, and it might have been Study Sasquatch. It might have been Chris Spencer and his group out there.
Nathaniel Bonus and stuff, yeah.
Guy naked and the other guy with clothes, and they were walking 25 yards, 50 yards, and they kept backing up to test the FLIR, which was super interesting because you could see a man wearing clothes versus a guy that wasn't wearing any clothes, because he was completely white, you know, with the white hot.
Mm-hmm.
And
I do have one little caveat there is, what do you guys think? Could you simulate that with the warmth of a fire? Could you put clothes close to the fire and then immediately put them on and then try to do a walk like that? Because if I were to attempt a hoax, that would be the only idea that I could come up with in the field.
Yeah.
It does make you wonder if that would take care of all the lines that would, you know, just show where the jacket is and the pants and stuff are. It
Right.
does make you wonder. But again, so that means there would have to be a campfire somewhat close by. And I'm not sure if there was how far he pulled back. But yeah, I mean, that's just as plausible as anything. I mean, I don't remember what a costume, if somebody's wearing a costume. I know somebody did tests on this, what it looks like when a human is wearing a costume, what that heat signature looks like. I can't remember if it was all uniform, like that video we just saw.
Did something like that at one time too. Hold on, I'm looking at this Study Sasquatch right now. Um,
Yeah, that's a good channel. They try to take a scientific approach on it. And it's, I
yeah,
think it's Chris Spencer and Nathaniel Bronis. And,
yeah, it is.
yeah.
Oh, here it is. Found it. And we'll start here. Okay, I'm gonna stop it and I'll share it. Maybe I'll share it. Yeah, there it goes. Thinking.
That's the thermal thing they're doing.
Yeah.
Testing.
Okay, here we go. He looks like a Sasquatch. Look at how big he looks there.
What's the guy on the right wearing? Did they ever say?
The one with the clothes, it has a
Is the other
jacket,
guy's-
pants, and the other guy's naked.
Oh,
Hmm.
One's wearing clothes and one's naked. Pretty white. Pretty big heat signature.
noticeable. You can notice the jacket for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the figure on that Ohio thermal video is more represented on the figure on the right than the left. One
Yeah.
that's not wearing. Yeah, so
You
hopefully that
can,
dude goes back.
I mean, that, you know, he's even barefooted. He doesn't have any shoes on. You can kind of see where his heat is being left on the ground as he's walking.
It looks like the pants have a good register. The person on the left, but but also like they at different motions, it's kind of like obvious that he's still wearing pants. You know, like it's not as you know. There's looseness to the fit.
Yeah, and again, I wonder. I know somebody did a study about what our heat signature looks like if we're wearing a costume. I think it was inconsistent, not as uniform as the figure on the right. You only get like heat spots, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But this is a FLIR. It's probably a really, really good one. Does it say HS324?
yeah, I was talking with Nathaniel and Kurt and stuff. Yes, they're at Squatch Fest, and they got a really cool long-term hidden thermal thing that they have that does it every so often. What's that say?
Cliff's video is still online of him naked and wearing a gorilla suit. Huh. That'll be interesting to look at. Anyway. So, thank you, Jay. Love you, dude. Thank you. He's naked and wearing. Oh, yeah. That's when Kaiju says it too.
Was the heat signature? Yeah, was the heat guys? Was the heat signature like the figure on the right there or the left, or could you tell it was a suit? If you guys remember? Awesome.
Kaiju? Was it? How did it look? Did it look like he was wearing a suit? Was it just white hot?
It's good to see Graz in there too. We were talking about you yesterday, buddy. We're there near your encounter location, talking about doing some stuff there. Maybe set up some trail cams finally.
He's not saying. Well, I was going to talk about conflicts of interest. We always do that. It always leads to, all these movies and documentaries, and then you have your conferences and you have people selling merchandise, and none of that stuff bothers me. I mean, everybody has a choice. If you want to buy it and participate, it's completely your choice. And I don't feel like it hurts the research side of things unless you're making up, your content. Then that's when it takes a weird turn. But as for entertainment, I think anything goes. It's exactly what it is. And even stuff like Finding Bigfoot and Expedition Bigfoot, those are entertainment, folks. There's no hands down. It is entertainment, and they're there to get ratings so that they can do the next season. So there's gonna be clever editing. There'll be sensationalism with audio and music and buffers and all this stuff to entice and attract people to continue to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, the way it is. That's the movies. It's very rare that you'll have those big shows. Okay. The producers or creators of that, Bigfooters, you've got people who are there to make money at some point. So they're trying to get those. Did I hear a dog?
It's like a motorcycle.
Oh, I heard a dog.
Willow Creek, that was the bomb. Willow Creek, that's like the best Bigfoot video I think I've ever seen. I love that one.
I don't know. You know what? I can't. I know I probably watched it, but I can't remember, and I don't know if I want to watch it before I go to Willow Creek.
Yeah, yeah. It could, also help save your life too. Apparently.
Oh, yeah. We'll see. Well, oh my gosh, yeah, it'll be a little freaky. Kaiju sent the video.
Oh, yeah, but I do agree with you about the entertainment side of the subject. I don't see anything wrong with it. A lot of people love buying Bigfoot paraphernalia and all that stuff and love the atmosphere of it. For me, the only time I speak up against people or anything like that is if there's like some manipulation going on of like real deceit in a way that they're profiting off of or grifting or doing something like that. Nefarious things. Those are the ones I speak up with, but yeah, like the entertainment side, it's like nobody's expecting like anything from the entertainment side other than to be entertained. So, people eventually figure that out. I mean, because look at Oak Harbor, man, or the Oak thing, that whole thing, Oak Ridge, whatever.
Oak Island.
It's like. Yeah. Man, it's an island. It's like just dig a really big hole or something. But no, it's like what, we're on 10 seasons now.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it's not so much about finding the actual treasure. It's about looking for it, and the journey that is associated with it is what they try to do off that. What's that?
David Rosti says, fun fact: dogs can sniff out cameras. Why not Sasquatch? With dogs, it's called electronic storage detection, ESD. Dogs are trained to detect the chemical compounds in electronic components. Yeah, bomb sniffing dogs.
Yeah, but that comes to trained. But, it is very possible that, they could pick up a foreign scent in the forest. That's like, wow, that's weird. Or they watch you put it up, too, because they can smell and see people moving and stuff. That was weird. Yeah. That stick. I forgot to tell you guys, or tell the video. So we looked at all the pictures and video on that trail cam, on Cosmos trail cam there. There was just deer or elk. I mean, just a bunch of elk coming through. But there's that one stick that was just like shoved. It was like, it's a clamming stick or something. And it was made by a human. And it was just stuck there right behind the tree. at Cosmos Trail Cam, which reminds me of like, you know, I hear stories of like people putting trail cams up and then they find interesting stuff like Ben Fried had this little mini structure appear behind the trail cam, and I was like, that's pretty interesting stuff. Forgot what I was going with that.
That's weird though.
Yeah, so, yeah, that stick though, that was weird, man. I could not figure that out.
Somebody going right to that area where you guys go, where we've all seen that you guys are walking like mad up and down and over down trees and dangerous. That walk is I would never ever hike that ever. You couldn't pay me to do that hike because I would kill myself or break my legs. And somebody would be there to stick a stick behind there to what?
And not get picked up on the trail cam either.
And not steal it?
Yeah.
Is it locked in there, or is it just tied on there, you know?
It's just tied on. Yeah, it's just tied on so anybody and their grandma can come take it. But yeah, it was just really weird having that. It wasn't there 3 months ago, I can tell you that. And it had notches on it, and Cosmo knew what those notches meant. They were for clamming. It was a clamming. Somebody used it for clamming. And how it got there, I don't know. But it's just really weird that they did not get picked up on the trail cam, because they should have. Like literally they should have, because behind that trail cam, it's like, you think what we walked through was bad. It's even worse back up in that area because it's just so dense and just so hard to get through. It's like
yeah.
So it's interesting. It's weird that they didn't get picked up on the trail cam.
I don't know. There's so many questions with that because I don't know. Would Bigfoot make a tool like that? How, you know, could they? Would
it had it? Well, but it had the notches on it. So, and it was an old like brush thing because it had a rubber cap on it, you know. So when you brush, yeah, you don't get that friction there. So it was definitely not a stick that was made out there. It was something that was manufactured and somebody repurposed it for clamming, and then somehow it just ended up behind Cosmo's tree there and behind his trail cam.
It's weird because like you want your natural inclination to say that it's like got something to do with it's a human tool, so it was a human person there. Like, I mean, I'm thinking of like the scenarios, but as you're adding more details, it's becoming like harder to just like write off. But like initially, like if it was alongside a trail, even if somebody had been walking along that trail and thought it'd be a cheeky little prank to plant that there and then take a wide way around to avoid getting on the camera as like, oh, this will confuse the person, you know, when they collect their pictures, like. But then you're like, well, that's not where you were. You were like off the beaten path already. And no one's just going to randomly, like, I mean, it's not impossible, but the likelihood of them randomly doing that and then also having the thought to play a joke, it just doesn't really add up. It's just the minute like possibility. And what you're saying about having that, like a human tool placed in proximity to like an active investigation, a trail camera or outside the camp or something like that. I've come across a few things in the field in areas known as like Bigfoot hotspots, where it's almost like something was put on the edge of our world and their potential world, like kind of like, here, take your trash back, you know? I don't know if that's the implication or what it is, but that is something that does happen. And all I can do is note it and then just think, well, that's weird that ended up there. Like, and it looks like sometimes it looks like stuff was like unearthed and covered in dirt and then given back, you know?
Yeah. So we looked at that stick too, and it was not a used stick for hiking, commonly used, because usually you'd get like the ends would be really frayed at the bottom, you know, like it's been hitting rocks and trees or whatever. No, it was in good shape. It was like it wasn't used for a walking stick purpose, at least the markings on indicating underneath there. And it's just weird that I just don't know like how they would have had to have seen the strap behind the camera, how, you know, like, I don't, that whole thing's just kind of weird. It's weird stuff.
Now you need a trail camera on your trail camera.
Well, that's what I did up in the North Cascades when I deployed my trail cameras. I had it set up so if something did go into the area around even the other trail cam, this trail cam will pick it up, and then vice versa with this other trail cam there. So I got a, you know, something that will triangulate that whole thing. So yeah, you kind of got to do that because, you know, I don't know. Trail cams, I don't really think they're gonna catch much of anything, because you get such a sliver of the forest, literally just a little sliver.
Yeah.
And so it's just like by chance, and then makes you wonder if they can smell it, or if they could watch you, or if they actually watch you pick it up, or if they can see your tracks and, oh, what's going on here? No, all that's very possible.
Kaiju wants to know what you think of the tree falling that you heard.
Yeah, we all heard that tree falling. Well, that's like the third or fourth tree that's fell near me when I'm out there researching Bigfoot. But yeah, that was weird. It sounded like a rotten tree that was being pulled. That was because it just sounded rotten, because a rotten tree sounds a lot different than a tree that has a lot of elasticity in the fibers and stuff. So it was definitely rotten, and I can guarantee you that tree sound did not come all the way from those people over there. The knocking sounds, okay, I'll give you that. But that tree sound, that sound would not have been able to get carried all the way from down there, up that little ridge there, through all the trees and stuff, and have it with that clarity of us hearing it. Because that had to have been within 100 yards or so, at least, for us to hear it with that, for people to even hear it on the video that day, yesterday, shows you how close it was. So yeah, with that tree falling over again, I don't know. Cosmo, we all searched around and stuff, and Cosmo thinks he might have found a tree that would be, like that could be the one that fell. But I mean, I don't know. It's really dense back there, and kind of hard to navigate sometimes. And
Yeah.
So that whole, I mean, I don't know what would I don't know. Like, I don't think it was those people.
Have you guys come across anything like a area like I've learned over the years that like fungal decay has a huge impact on like health of different strands of forest, and so some slopes where there's a prominent colony of fungi or whatnot, like it will, like a lot of the trees on that slope, I've seen that in the Appalachian trails, I've seen it in the Rockies, I've seen it in the like up in the Vancouver area, where like a lot of the trees are like impacted in their root structure by the subterranean fungi, and like then they essentially die standing up instead of taking physical trauma and breaking in half, and then over time, especially on slopes, they're like prone to fall over. And I had to stop and think after hearing some tree falls before, like, okay, could that have been Sasquatch related, or is this just like a dying strand of forest? And one of the things that I as I think more about it, I'm like, well, what's to stop something like that from using that as an area, high on a ridge, knowing that there are plenty of pushable trees, and going there from time to time, and when it wants to display its presence or dominance over the campsite below, knock one over and bounce.
Yeah, I mean, we were because up there at Jay Birch's site, Nikki was there for one of them. We had like two trees. For me, I was there consecutively, and each year I was there, I had a tree fall over, and it does make you wonder about that. It's very possible that the tree fall that we heard was on a slope and stuff. There was no wind, and I guess there is always that chance that we were at the right place at the right time for a tree to fall in the woods, and we heard it pretty much. But I don't know. I don't know. It was an interesting day yesterday. That was very interesting.
Now I'm gonna play the tree fall. Here it comes. Hold on. Yeah, that was creepy. We were all just getting ready for bed.
Yeah, well, I don't even think I was in camp or when that fell, because I was over there about ready to go fight those people across the way there, making all that noise.
Yeah.
So I wasn't even there for that. That's a good one. That was actually in the same general area where that other tree fell the year prior. Got that recorded as well.
There's all those trees that you guys are climbing all over. They had to get there some way, so it happened. It probably happens more than we think. We're just not out there constantly. And especially in the Pacific Northwest, I'm sure you got tons of rot, because of how
Oh
moisture.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it definitely happens. Um,
Yeah.
So correlation versus causation, noises out in the woods, does that mean presence of a Bigfoot? It really, we don't know. We don't know what those things are. Forest language, is that tree structures? Is that Bigfoot? We just don't know. We can say we think this could be caused by something. It's weird. Or what gets me too is people who think that the glyphs are a thing, that they're walking and there's tree sticks piled up and looks like an A and a X and a plus sign, and they're saying, welcome to my forest or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
that I just, I don't buy any of that stuff, and I tend to really fast leave, that channel or that group if they all believe that they know what Bigfoot is saying in the, in the dirt with sticks.
Yeah, it's definitely all subjective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say like in just recent the recent past, I kind of came across like forest language of like hunters of like indigenous hunters and like Aborigines in Australia. I didn't know that they like use something very similar to wood knocks to kind of in a multi-person like party, like for hunting. Like they would like to not startle the game, they would utilize wood knocks, kind of like what under the same circumstances or nature of what we hear with Bigfoot, to kind of relay each other's like approximate location as they're like closing in on potential game. And I was unaware of that until like my sister, who was a guide living in Australia for study abroad students, like gave me some of that information that is like part of the curriculum or some of the facts that she had um, like distributed to some of the students. And then the other thing that I learned just a couple of years ago, just scrolling through social media, is this lost language that scouts and everyone are not lost because it still is being put out there. But for years, I didn't know that there was like all these like the ways they can stack rocks and sticks along a trail and convey certain like scout information. And so like there's a lot of times, especially around trailheads, around trails, like in inhabited areas or just barely off the beaten path, I wonder like, okay, what's the human influence here? Was this something, this looks squatchy until you understand there's a human application, that it could be from, a person.
I've never walked in the woods though and seen X structure, right? And said, oh, that's saying stay away.
Yeah.
Can't go past that point.
And it's always two huge trees too that like.
Yeah.
It's like, it's funny. It's like if Bigfoot uses that to communicate the X formation, it's like, man, he sure picked one of the most common formations in the forest to use to like indicate markers and stuff. Like, how does he,
right.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know. I don't know how, it happens because we make it happen. That's a thing.
Yeah.
Create that stuff.
Yeah. And that's where it comes down to having the right mindset when you're out there investigating this subject, because you can easily get lost in the narrative. And I think a lot of us do. And I have before. I mean, shit, I thought Bigfoot lived under a tree for a short period of time. So we can all get lost in the narrative. And that's why it's really important to keep a good, solid mind frame of not get lost with the priming and confirmation bias that usually gets associated with this subject, since there is no real viable evidence and data for us to draw on. We can only draw off subjective stuff at times. And so it's like, that's why it's very important to keep a good, solid mindset, a good balanced mindset, and not get emotionally attached to this stuff as far as evidence, because you might be wrong about it. And you don't want to be carrying around something that obviously has nothing to do with Bigfoot, but you want to believe so much that it is, that you keep on and don't live, so it's just something for people to be mindful about.
Right. I don't know why that overlapped, but my next one was unsupported conclusions. And the perfect example of that would have been MK Davis and his Bluff Creek massacre. And that whole group, you know, Bobby Short and Police and Cat Hansen, all of them, they just create what they want. And their narrative took off with a bunch of people, with a whole group of people. And there wasn't nothing there to support it other than MK Davis's red enhancement, you know, to the videos. So,
Yeah, his
you know,
his subjective
red.
yes, it was his subjective analysis of that film that was improperly done. That should not have been used as evidence because of the alterations that were made, because it wasn't even the original part of it. And yeah, that, you know, yeah, I'm surprised people still fall for that. But it just goes to show you that that's not how research is done. You know,
To think that more people are now kind of cautious about that because there's been so many people putting out content about the massacre and everything that was involved in it. And, you know, bigger researchers like Thomas Steenberg and some others, you know, have come out saying there's nothing there. Had that been true, we would have had answers to Sasquatch a long time ago, you know, because we would have known where the bodies were. They would have been dug up and there would have been evidence, and that would have been that. You know, so
no, that trail cam with the oven mitt behind it is what's, you know, keeping people from going digging up all those bodies and proving it to the world. Is a trail cam with an oven mitt behind it. That's what MK Davis wants us to think of that. For that, you know, it's like, okay, that's believable.
yeah,
you know,
you're right.
I don't know.
Complete delusion. Complete.
Yeah.
But he'll always blame somebody else. He was just going off of that. You know, he was just trying to make it right, trying to prove it, saying that it was all Bobby Short's idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
Selective reporting. This is one of my favorites because I think we all kind of do this, and not intentionally, some of us unintentionally, but we cherry pick, you know, what we find to be the best evidence or the best non-evidence to support whatever claim we do. This right here happens to be Cabin in the Woods. You know, he put out a recent video called Skeptics Proven Wrong in 16 minutes. You know, he's proven us all wrong. And one right after another. This is this because pretty much I said so. You know, you could just put I said so, so you're wrong on the end of everything he did. Meanwhile, his whole video had nothing but what do you call it? Already debunked hoaxes. You know, his whole video.
That dude's not even a reliable. That dude's not even a reliable source for anything, because he was caught manufacturing quotes by people in the Olympic Project that they never said, and he never took any accountability for that. He didn't take any responsibility by taking the video down or even fucking making a little note on it. So he's already shown that he's, you know, his deep dives are shit. Like he doesn't put as much work into it as he should, because he gets a lot of things wrong, or it was already debunked, or, you know, XYZ. And so with people like that, you know, when people are presenting evidence, you really do need to look at the person also that's presenting it, because, you know, there just might be a whole series of red flags that just will be there, that to the point where you don't even have to worry about watching the video, because you know it's already probably fake or manufactured or not worth your time, because they've already proven themselves to not be a reliable source.
Yeah. Wizard, Jonathan, are you already gone? Are you still in the chat? Let me know. Are you still in the chat, Jonathan? You already clicked out? You already said good nights? Everybody's saying good night to Jonathan, but I wanted to tell him something real quick. Are you there, Jonathan? No, he left. Okay. I guess he left. So anyway, that's part of the whole cherry picking evidence and ignoring details, ignoring details, pretty much. We talked about that already. Here's that part with non-peer reviewed material. And the biggest one of all was Melba Ketchum's DNA study, where she tried and tried to get peer reviewed, but she had been rejected, with those findings, to the point where she just went and got the journal herself to post her, to review her own stuff and put it out there, which is pretty underhanded, I think, and just goes to character. It's definitely goes to character. But how much of that goes on? We've tried. There's been several different groups who have tried to create a peer review type of group where you could submit evidence or data, and then that would get reviewed by different groups, different people in the group. But it just never works because everybody ends up feeling like they're being picked on.
That's the thing.
They're not willing to hear the bad with the good or whatever. They don't want to hear, well, it could be this, it could be that, it could, because anybody who presents material, and this goes for anywhere, any researcher, investigator, and they present their product online, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you post, and the instant you hear, well, that's a shitty photo, or I don't see anything in that, or maybe you should throw a red circle on that, or whatever you see or hear, they don't want to hear it,
because they're too emotionally attached, because they already made up their mind that it is real, and they're so emotionally attached that they can't let it go. And that's a real danger that happens to a lot of investigators in this subject. And
yeah,
it's just, again, something to be mindful about.
It is.
Well, skeptics can come in hard too. There's reasonable skeptics, and then like even self-proclaimed professional skeptics can sometimes still have that confirmation bias and oversight. Mm-hmm. I was doing research. I read a really good book called Abominable Science, and it's not like, it's got some good science and some bad science in regards to like various cryptids. It convinced me on some. And then other things like Bigfoot, I felt like they were a bit hasty to get to their conclusion. That hasty generalization that we have to be aware of as investigators that support the idea of Bigfoot being real. They were also making that, like, they were so prone to looking at Greg Long's book about Roger Patterson hoaxing the Patterson-Gimlin film, and that book is very heavily with character assassination and it just glimpses over a couple of little superficial details instead of deep diving the science of the film subject, the costume industry, and primate physiology. So like in the same way that we can make those mistakes on that skeptic side, the other extreme can also make those same hasty generalizations, those same mistakes, those bad calls. Just thinking of like false authority on the subject. Like another example was Reinhold Messner is a really like accomplished mountaineer, and he allegedly had a Yeti sighting and wrote a book about it, went on an expedition, and his final culmination, even though he saw something and described something bipedally, swinging arms at the beginning of the book, at the end, he kind of just says, well, I think I saw a brown bear, guys. And like, and the thing about that is like the author of this book that cited that gave him the authority that was very undeserved of somebody that knows biology, knows wildlife biology, and can make such a claim. So just that was like just several examples within that Abominable Science book of like I had like issues with, like, just immediately something came to mind that contradicted their prevailing idea. another thing that comes to mind, and this will be my last example, is they were talking about animals, and of certain sizes, mammals in particular have a corresponding range based off of their size. And so the bigger the animal, the bigger range they have. And then immediately what came to mind for me was mountain gorillas and mountain lions, and how mountain lions, and they're both mammals, but a mountain lion has a way larger range because the corresponding evolutionary biology that makes like it's convenient and efficient for travel, and it has different food resources, and it goes and it depletes its calories at a different metabolic rate than a mountain gorilla, which eats nutrient poor stuff, stays in an area because food is prevalent, and it's a specialist in its environment. Like, so to sit there and just make these absolute claims that nature works in one very specific way and there aren't outliers to those rules, and not even address that in a narrative where you're trying to convince the audience, was just it just seemed irresponsible, seemed hasty, and it seemed like it was rife with errors and a lack of consideration. And and that could be hard to work with too, even when you have good evidence that you're trying to present.
Thank you, Shattering Delusions, for your donation to the channel. Walking into the conversation on bodies, reports say they live in caves, move boulders, and blur and bury their dead. If a true note, the difficulty to find bear, cougar, animal skeletons in the wild, 2 times the difficulty for Sasquatch.
Sure are.
That's always been.
Seems like
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to. I mean, look at how fast deer and things we know to completely disappear in the forest. Sometimes it takes a week, and that thing is carried off by predators, and the rodents eat the bones, and everything is used up in the forest.
nothing goes to waste.
Yep, nothing. And then you
And
have the idea of burying the dead.
Yeah, I don't think they would, if we do assume that Bigfoot does bury their dead, if we go with that, I could see why they would, because if they leave a body around, because they're really big about being elusive, not indicating where they are or anything like that. So it seems like a no-brainer that they would retrieve their dead and move on. So, we aren't alerted, or people or whoever are not alerted that they're in the area, or whatever the case may be. So I could see them like retrieving their dead and having an importance of making it so that we don't find them, because that might compromise the whole community there of Bigfoots, I guess. I don't know. That's my thought on it. Because we do it for like for safety reasons, and for ceremony. It's a ceremony thing that we do. And
yeah,
I don't know if Bigfoot has a ceremony type of thing, but yeah.
Might have to go talk to what's his name? Cantrell? No. Who am I thinking of? Yeah.
Kimcho?
Is it Cantrell? Tom Cantrell, right? Is he the one?
Oh, Tom Cantrell. Yeah.
He's the one that walks all the way up to Canada to see the burials and the weddings and the ceremonies of the Bigfoot.
Yeah, I actually just met up with him again. Me and Tristan did at Squatch Fest. I don't believe anything Tom says or anything, but he's the sweetest guy. Like he's like a grandpa kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just he believes in the things that he believes in for certain reasons, and I think it's a very common thing in this subject. Yeah, but yeah, Tom Cantrell almost ran me over with his scooter once.
Because do Sasquatch have ceremonies? We don't know because we haven't been able to study them.
And anybody who says they know is
intelligent, right?
Yeah, anybody who says they know, they don't know. If anybody tells you what Bigfoot does and doesn't do, I wouldn't listen to them, because they're obviously making up a narrative that they can control. And that's a big thing too. Matt Johnson, he's all about having complete control of his narrative, to the point where he just like went and started his own religion. Crazy. We should have done that. Talks of
Is my mic
Bigfoot.
going
Sightings.
crazy?
Yeah, it's kind of like getting delay.
It's getting crazy. Do I have to get closer to it or what? Hello.
Yeah, it's again, it's with Tom. I don't think anybody serious in the subject really believes him, but I wouldn't want to take away the Bigfoot subject from him, like by always disproving him or like telling him he's full of shit. 'Cause I think he really needs this subject a lot. So yeah.
Might cutting in and out, short in the wire, probably because I keep moving it. But we're almost done here. We're about 7 minutes away. If there's any questions out there for anybody, go ahead and post it now for Ron or Brent. You guys have any questions left? Be shutting her down.
We need to get Graz, buddy. We need to get you out there. We were just out there yesterday talking about you, where you had your encounter and stuff. Talking about like the salmon and following, because something Bill from Finding the Trackway introduced to me last year when I was out investigating with him is understanding and following the life cycle of a valley, because I think that's very important to put yourself in the right place at the right time. When the berries come in, or when the deers are migrating through, or when the fish are spawning. I think if we can understand that to the degree that they probably do, I think we'll probably be more successful. And that's something I'm trying to do this year more of, is understand that life cycle of the valley. But man, that's like a whole another field that's out. It has nothing to do with Bigfoot, but I'm like, you got to learn about all these other things just so you can do the Bigfoot subject. Like, you got to learn what is and isn't Bigfoot, what other animals are out there and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. You going?
I think I'm gonna try to go to Bluff Creek this year. I
think
we were
I'm
initially
bringing Thomas Steenberg down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
cool.
Steenberg will be there.
I just barely missed them in Vancouver when I was back there. That one time I went, but that'll be exciting. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely try to make it this year. I've already been talking to some of the other researchers, the investigators we go with. But just to add on to what you're saying, like Bluff Creek is a perfect example of, like, you have to know all of this stuff. You have to know fire ecology. You have to know like where the fire patterns and what that does to the wildlife, and whether or not Bigfoot like would go to an area for berries at a certain time of year, or is it in like a valley where it can ambush deer and try to get protein, or like is it actively avoiding or competing with black bears and their populations out there? Like, it's just really hard to, like, Bluff Creek's so dynamic. It's such a like healthy and an ever-changing environment, and it's really hard, and you do have to like get a crash course in a lot of stuff just to kind of navigate the types of things that you come into contact with out there. In fact, I don't know if we have time or if there's going to be other questions, but I have a small sample of my personal library and just some of the related fields of study I reference for better understanding. And I can show you real quick just the books and what kind of subjects they are.
Have any time constraints? Squatch DTV, I don't think is having a show at 7, so I usually try to end so everybody in my chat can go over there. But you're good. You're good to go.
Okay.
Let's see what you got.
All right. So I've only got 2 Bigfoot books in this, and that is the and I've got other books on the subject, but this is again just like a random little pull of a couple of things. I've got John Bindernagel's book of the Sasquatch, and that takes a wildlife biologist approach and how he's navigated the field. And then the other book that I have is Sasquatch Legend Meet Science, and what Dr. Jeff Meldrum, who's professor of anthropology specializing in bipedal foot morphology, has to say about footprints and other things. But then I've got books on tracks and scat and animal signs of North America, the Primate Anthology, which is a collection of primatologists' field surveys and kind of what they've gleaned from observing apes in the wild through a window, which is a kind of another example of that with Jane Goodall and her studies with chimpanzees in Gombe. This is a little bit straying from the subject, but the overall theme does come in handy to kind of paint a natural history of Bigfoot. But I have a field guide to prehistoric mammals, and just I like to learn about paleontology for the simple fact of just seeing examples in past of how evolution works over time, and why animals try different things and how they develop certain traits. But also, like, it helps paint a picture of a prehistoric time that primates would have had to like adapt and survive in, and kind of help like have speculation of how they are today. And that's kind of why I have this book too, is diving in a little bit into anthropology and human origins and ancient primate species. Another book on primate cognition and how the ape mind works. Wild edible plants. Yeah, and then I've got Abominable Science. I do have this mostly. The reason I wanted to feature this one and talk a little bit about it today is, as you engage with skeptics, it's good to have like those debates and entertaining, at least hearing what the skeptics have to say, so that you can do your own research and have a rebuttal is important, especially if you give presentations like I occasionally do. So like, that's a good thing to have a good point of reference to see what the other side is thinking and how do they structure their arguments. Primate social systems. And then this one here is interesting, the Wildlife Techniques Manual. This is like a textbook, and it's got a volume 1 and 2. And this is all about how to do field science and how to engage in the field and like navigate. Like, so some of the things here, it's got like analysis of wildlife ecology, creating simulations for models for simulation, how to apply aerial vehicles, drones in the field, like, and doing like bioacoustics monitoring systems. So putting long-term audio out and how to like analyze it, and like a crash course in animal behavior. Like, these are things that have been really helpful for me. And have I read all of these books from front to cover? No, but I have them for references, and I can skim through them and look at chapters if I really want to expose myself to doing something differently, taking a new approach and doing it correctly. But that's all I got. Oh, I do have one more book here. This one's an essential. It's really helped me a lot. It's called In Me Own Words. It's kind of
I got that one.
It's the autobiography of Bigfoot.
Yep, I got that one.
Yeah,
that's the one Bigfoot book I got.
That one's just for fun. But a guy by the name of Graham Ramu. But yeah. But no, I just wanted to share some of those things with you guys, because that right there is like 15 years of effort to understand the subject, and I'm still not proclaiming that I know anything about it.
Yeah,
the controversial stuff for sure. Go ahead.
That last book you showed, not the
field
wildlife. Yeah. That's an amazing book, because man, if we had something like that applied to Bigfoot, which most all that does apply to Bigfoot, or you apply to Bigfoot research and investigation, if we had like some sort of useful guide like that citizen scientists can use to better our own investigations, man, that would be like a great resource. Another book you might like too is called American Serengeti by Dan Flores, and it talks about all the animals that lived here, like camels, horses, and how they evolved here, then left, and then some came back. And it's really interesting to hear about the American Serengeti, of how it was like a different world, literally like 15,000, 20,000 years ago. It's like, wow, it's incredible how things change.
Yeah, there's with the mass extinction that happened at the end of the Pleistocene. There was a lot of empty niches. So they a lot of people like this concept of rewilding and like adding those or representatives of those old species, or we're talking about cloning and bringing back the mammoth and stuff now, and whether that would be good or bad for the current environment. But no, it's like there's empty niches, and it's weird when you have something like a pronghorn antelope that can go like 70 miles per hour at a full run and sustain it for a long time. And that's a direct evolutionary response to the now extinct American cheetah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's like, it's that we've got fragments of the old environment still alive today. And it's in this like ever adjusting period of change. And I think that's important when you're trying to hone in on everything that you can learn about a local area and then find that Sasquatch shaped hole and how it moves around and interacts with all of it.
Yeah,
Right.
because I think Bigfoot, if they're out there, I think they are definitely would be a relic of the old Ice Age monsters that we had living here. Like Panthera, short-faced bear, and stuff. And I think they're probably only around still now because they were so good at being elusive and having to hide from all those monsters that they had to face. I don't think they were the apex predator because they would just be like us in the forest dealing with like a bear or something like that. They would easily lose or could get hurt and all that stuff. So I think they had to work really hard at concealing themselves, so they didn't get caught and eaten and stuff. And maybe that's why they're still around when all the other ice age giants are gone now.
Could be. That's what David Rosti is asking. Love where your head's at, Ron. Do you all firmly believe that they exist even without a public confirmation of a body?
I think at this point, I think in speaking in absolutes without ever having a sighting where visual conditions were prime, I want to just have a little bit of reservation. But what I will say is I'm more convinced that they're real than a constant misunderstanding or misinterpretation of some of the things that I've observed in the field. Like the idea, like what we know about like footprints and how we've studied very specific anatomical details that are that check out with primate physiology, like that it's too much to be a happy coincidence that a country bumpkin can come out there and simulate that without having any understanding of it, especially when you look at like the old tracks from like the 50s and 60s. Like there's like the Patterson-Gimlin track that actually shows a mid-tarsal break. Before anybody was talking about mid-tarsal breaks was kind of telling for me. That with a film that after all this time can't be debunked. It's like the odds are stacking to me in how I think critically. It's stacking to be a stronger argument that Bigfoot is real than all these independent agents of confusion working simultaneously to form a believable narrative.
I just think they're out there. There's something out there, Not everybody's lying, right? Not everybody's making up stories. Some of them have to be credible. Some of them do. Some of them are coming from police officers and homemakers and people who have nothing to do with Bigfoot, who are traumatized even by this kind of stuff. They've never set foot in forests again after their experiences. And like you said, we all have that one thing, that'll even get us more into the subject where we question, why did that happen? What was that just keep you going? Me included. I mean, that happened that last night at Mount St. Helens. Jen and I went through something that night and we don't, I know she's pretty solid. It was a juvenile Sasquatch. I'm a little bit more hesitant, but I don't think it was a bear for sure. I don't think so because it just did not act like how we think bears act. So I don't know, that's the thing. It grabs you and you want more. You definitely want more.
Yeah, you want some sort of resolution, some sort of resolve as far as if it is real and stuff. That's what I'm all
about. What do you mean when you say country bumpkin?
I just mean like the hoaxers and intentional like pranksters that don't have a formal education through like anthropology and don't hold like masters and get exposure to that training. Like even I qualify as a country bumpkin in a lot of regards because I haven't been able to put myself through academia to like know exclusive things. Like I can look around for old used textbooks on Amazon for, you know, $4, you know, at Goodwill or something. But like I don't have like that professor that has helped me understand like what all of it means or break down what the terms are. And it's just hard for somebody to guess and get it right to that degree of specificity.
Yeah. Jen says, yep, I'm pretty solid on that. And I think I was more solid when it happened because I couldn't explain what happened. But over time, then what if, or what, you know, what if it was a bear and it was just a quiet bear and it was a bear that didn't make a mess? You know, it's a bear that didn't eat the sugar cubes that were on the table or the cookies or the pretzels or the, you know, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the thing is like there's so many mysteries out there that, you know, that's what keeps me going. I love it.
And my books are all supporting my friends. And this is Steve Call's book. And this is Pine Island, Jeff Harding's book. And I've got the Shane's books over there. And I do have Greg Long's book behind me on the table.
Yeah.
That I wanted to do a Greg Long show, guys. And it just, that book is hard to get through because it's got so much crap going on in it.
Well, there's a lot to talk about with that Greg Long stuff because that email I sent you, that dude who broke down like how he was wrong on all that things, like I didn't even read the whole email because it was.
I was going through it line by line, and I got very overwhelmed with that guy's email.
Yeah, it's very detailed, but it indicates there's something that you know, not all is glittered with gold with that dude Ryan Long.
I have time later. It'll get done, and we can do a Greg Long show.
That's a fine line between bad science and bad journalism. But they both suffer from the same lack of thinking.
Okay, that's part of that cherry picking. He was only picking the things that supported his whole narrative. So, you know. Oh, another one comes in. Shattering delusions again. Says, thanks for clarification. Why do you think the narrative in the anthropomorphic and archaeological or archaeology academy is so locked? Is it the evolutionist mindset?
You know, I one thing that I've seen is just that they're still figuring it out. That peer review in the anthropological world and where humans come from is still being hotly contested. And you know, I recently read a book called Fossil Men that kind of shed some light on that. And essentially, like, there was all these misconceptions that we came from apes, and that, like, you know, like that it went a very specific way, that we attributed all of our human anatomy, and then when cross-referenced to modern apes, that it's like that those were the old representatives, their traits were the older traits, but then like something about the foot and various specific parts, they found them in older primate relatives. And so it was human beings that in some cases were holding on to old traits. And so that was more of a narrative that both species diverging that are now modern. You know, chimps are every bit as modern in their own respective way as humans are. So it's not like, you know, that they're holding on to the old physiology, the old behaviors, and that we're just the only one advancing forward. It's like we're both like spreading out like branches and leaves, and that family tree model is it couldn't be more like accurate. And it's the tree is very complex, so to speak, and it's in there's just a lot of misconceptions and a lot of people saying, well, this is the way that it is, and then 5 years later a published review says, no, actually we've made some findings and we think that's wrong. And then they debate it rather hotly and they get passionate and angry about it. And so maybe You know, they know that they can't just put stuff out there for the general public until they have a good understanding of how it actually is. And a lot of those theories are still in testing and haven't become scientific fact or law. And that's with a lot of things. It's a lot of speculation, even in established science.
Right. Last one, Shattered. Okay, he's talking to Shattered. There. Well, I think that's the show, guys. Thank you guys for coming on. Talk with me about this stuff. Ron, thank you so much for giving your input on this. I appreciate it. And maybe I'll get to meet you in July.
All right.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Let me see. I think that's it. That's it, folks. Thank you for coming to Sasquatch Secrets. I appreciate you guys all being here. And don't forget to like and share the show if you liked it. Please. Sharing is caring. Thank you guys once again. And we shall see you guys